with us we have Laura Hurtado and Fatou Mbaye. Thank you both for joining us. Ms. Hurtado, Food Rights Coordinator at ActionAid Guatemala, holds a doctorate in social sciences from the Facultad Latinoamericano de Ciencias Sociales and is the author of Agrarian Dynamics and Rural Reproduction in the Era of Globalization, The Case of Alta Verapaz, 1970 to 2007. She works with rural communities in Guatemala on issues of land rights, sustainable agriculture, and the impact of increasing production of sugarcane and palm oil production for biofuels. Ms. Mbaye, Program Officer at ActionAid Senegal, carries out research and advocacy on biofuels and food security. She has a master's degree from l'École Nationale des Cadres Ruraux in Senegal and a certificate in development studies from the Graduate Institute of Development Studies in Geneva. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Let's start off with a basic synopsis highlighting the impact of biofuel production and food security. Can you give us an overview of how small farmer investments in these cash crops has affected local food production in your given communities?
Thank you. In Senegal, actually, biofuel production used to start about 2 years ago in 2007 with a national program launched by the government.
Okay.
So we have a national program for 321,000 hectares of plantation of jatropha. Jatropha is a biodiesel crops growing in Africa in general. So land has been affected for that national program, the ambitious national program. And beside that national program, we have some private investor who gets land to produce jatropha or biofuel in general. So, and this is arable land. They're using arable land. The land we used to use for food crops. And in Senegal, it might affect the food security. As we know, in Senegal, we import like more than 60% of our food. So we cannot cover our need in food in Senegal. And if we start to produce biofuel using the arable land we use for the food crops, it affects our national food security, and especially on especially women's who gets to produce more than 70% of our food, national food.
Okay, and why is this a valuable investment for the government? Why is there a move in that direction rather than trying to support the small farmers and what they're doing?
It's a great debate about climate change.
Mm-hmm.
It said it's an alternative. Producing biofuel is an alternative to find a solution on the climate crisis, and to find also a solution about oil crisis. That's why they try to produce biofuel. But our concern is in Senegal, we did not have any impact assessment about biofuel production, and also we do not have until yet a regulatory framework to regulate land allocations and also the market on biofuel production. And we just follow up international demands about biofuel. If we know that in Europe they just target for agrofuels in 2020 to incorporate 10% of biofuel on the transportation. And we know that in Europe they don't have enough land to produce that biofuels, and they're looking for lands in developing countries to achieve their objectives.
Mr. Fatou, do you share the similar struggle?
Yes. Well, in Guatemala, there we used to have palm oil plantations as well as sugarcane plantations. So these are not new crops. But what we are seeing now is that from 5 years to up to now, these plantations are getting expanded in a very, very quick rate, at a very quick rate. And this is entailing concentration of agrarian property process, which is a reversal from what we gained with the peace accords. You know, we had a war, an internal war in Guatemala for over 30 years, and it ended by 1996 with peace accords. And one of the main issues of this war was the very concentrated agrarian structure. And so the former plantations of sugarcane and palm oil were done in the south coast, in the Pacific coast. But right now, in order to expand themselves, these plantations have to grab, the enterprises have to grab land from the peasants and the farmers that just got titles, land titles, after the peace accords. For us, it's a reversal from what we had won with the peace accords. That is in the one hand. So, and these farmers lose their means to produce their own food. The concentration process goes both within big properties, what were already big properties, but also with small properties. And in both cases, there is land that is being lost for the food production. And for the farmers' families, this is even worse, because land doesn't mean only food production, but it means also a means to get to firewood, to water, to too many resources, natural resources for their lives, like to be able to produce crafts and other economical activities. And besides that, the grabbing of land by these plantations is entailing a process of destroying the environment. We have forests being lost, rivers being redirected in their course, and a lot of biodiversity being lost by this way.
So what's becoming of these small farmers that are being displaced in both of your communities? Where are they going? Where are they living now as a result? What's happening to them?
Well, what's happening? For example, we have as ActionAid, we have done a study on one of a very big farm, which was it's almost 100 hectares, 100,000 hectares, the area, and it was given to 34 communities. Almost out of these 34 communities, 12 of them had already disappeared because of the oil palm plantation. And what usually happens is that the man will go to work if he's young enough, because plantations won't hire old people. They hire youngsters. And if they are young enough, they usually go to work to the plantation, and they are very bad paid, under the minimum salary that is stated by law. In other cases, they will go to the protected areas, to forests that are being kept by the state, to try to find some other land to cultivate. So this means that the agrarian border is pushing, it's going further. And some other times they just stay as unemployed, and they survive by little trading in the towns, just somewhere else, and migrate to the cities. And the ones that have the worst part in all this story are the women, because they usually stay with their families, their children at home, and they have a lot. They have worse conditions to get to water, to firewood, and to get to their income.